more and more interesting karikas are coming. Moving and non-moving, whether there is moving or non-moving, locomotion and non-locomotion, something like that, say, moving or non-moving, which constitutes the duality, is perceived by mind. He says it is seen by the mind. For when mind does not exist as mind, in sleep and samadhi, duality is never perceived. Through agreement and deference, Anvaya and Vyatireka is telling, the duality is perceived when the mind is in vibration or in oscillation, and he uses the word, the mind, when mind does not exist as mind. That is, mind is there, but it is not manifesting and it is not working. Both in sleep and samadhi. How does the mind cease to function? Is the question. When mind cease to imagine, imagining is there not in the mind. When he says only after the realization of truth, after experiencing the Atman, there is no more imagination in the mind. Then it becomes non-perceiver, owing to absence of objects to be perceived. It becomes non-perceiver. If the duality is unreal, how to realize without mind? That was the question asked by the opponent. Knowledge which is free from imagination, that is self, is called the self unborn, Aja. So what is Aja? Knowledge which is free from imagination. And morning we heard, knowledge and the thing that is known are not different. It is not distinct from the knowable, the Atman. This is shown through telling knowledge is knowable self. So we need not take the support of mind. What the opponent asks, how to realize without the mind? Mind is to remove the cover of ignorance. And it will not help you for realization. When the cover is removed, it is self-effulgent. Even now, you are possessing that self-effulgent Atman. That's why in Shrutis, they say, Brahmaivasan Brahmapyeti. Even before he was Brahman, but he attains Brahman, he says. Brahmaivasan, he was already Brahman. And he gets Brahman or attains Brahman. So, here the main obstacle which you call ignorance, that is removed by the practice of the mind. Telling knowledge is noble, so the realization is direct fruit, he says. Realization is direct fruit, not an indirect fruit. like doing some havan, some yajna and going to heaven. What guarantee is there? Whether you have performed the havan properly or not. Even a little disturbance is there in the rites, you will not attain. Indra Sritur Vardhasva. We already gave the illustration previously. The Vritrasura was the enemy of Indra and he was performing a yajna. He is giving oblation. Indra Sritur Vardhasva, Indra Sritur Vardhasva. And the last letter, the vowel, in the pronunciation of the vowel, there are three types. One vowel, A. And Uchcher Udattaha, Nicher Anudatta, Samahara Swarita. So, you can say loudly, you can say slowly, and in the medium voice you can say Uchcher Udattaha, Nicher Anudatta, Samahara Swarita. But this is the South Indian system. But in North India, they say Uchcher Udattaha, Nicher Anudattaha, Samahara Swaritaha. Like that they show the hands and they will be chanting in the same way. But what happened when Uttarasura was chanting and all his followers to kill Indra, there was a small mistake in the Udatta and Anudatta. So, when the mistake is there, instead of Udatta, he told Anudatta or Swarita. Then what happens? It becomes Bahuvrihi Samasa. Bahuvrihi Samasa means, now he is telling Indra's Sritur Vardhasva. That is the enemy of Indra, Uttarasura, should get more power, something like that. Vardhasva. But what happened? It has become Bahuvrihi. Then, who is the Shatru for Vrutra? That he should be getting high powers. That it goes to Indra. So, Vrittasura died. Indra Shatru Vardhasva. What I mean to say is, we need not go into so much details. Nowadays, the performance of yaga and yajna, never and then they do. They are not doing regularly. They are not doing the regular rituals. Nitya karma they are not doing. Something they ask somebody, somebody does. And our Swamiji used to tell, in a particular place, that marriage function was going on. And in India, in marriage function, there are Brahmins from both the sides. From the bride and bridegroom side. So, one side, he was chanting, but he was not a good scholar. Other side, fellow was very good scholar. So what he was chanting? He was chanting that Shraddha mantras. Shraddha mantras means giving oblations to the died fathers, forefathers. So then this fellow, he understood that he is not chanting the mantras of marriage, but he is chanting something for forefathers. So he got up and immediately gave a big slap in the middle. You fellow, what you are doing? To the other fellow. That is, even the ordinary people, what to talk of them. When the Brahmins who are conducting the rites, they are not having proper knowledge. What to talk of others? Oh, it is all out of question, we can say. So, now why so much of explanation? direct fruits and indirect fruits. So don't worry about anything of the indirect fruits. I will perform this, I will go to Brahmaloka, I will go to heaven, I will get these fruits. Forget everything. Just have the direct result. Yes, here I will do everything I will realize before the falling of the body. Bas. So, one teaching we have given. What is that? Now or never. Now or never, now here. Bas. This much. Now here or now or never. So he says, the realization is direct fruit, not like heaven, which is an indirect fruit it gives, which is an indirect fruit. It is not like sleep. The opponent has asked. In the sleep also mind is not working. And when you control the mind, then also mind is not working. So both must be same. For that he is telling, we need not experience the self. It is familiar in sleep. Then he says, without an intention, if we restrain the mind, which is endowed with discrimination, then you should these things should be observed by a aspirant. He says, without any intention, sankalpa, and with full discrimination, endowed with discrimination, an aspirant should observe to control the mind. Then the restrained mind experiences the absolute bliss, but not a sleeping mind. Now this sleeping and this experience of the Atman, he will be further explaining. When oscillations are not there, then duality will not be there. That he reminds. After translating the first three portions of the Karika, he is explaining further. Tasya. When the object is not there, the reality of the experience of Atman can be experienced. That has been told by the word discrimination. By discrimination he has used for the aspirant. He says he should discriminate and he should experience the reality of the Atman, and for imagining there should not be any object. Now, you take the mind as the mirror. What you have done? We are comparing the mind as the mirror. As long as an object is there, the object reflects in the mirror. But without keeping any object, you just turn it to the sky, the all-pervading sky. No object. What reflection is there? If clouds are there, then you will see some reflection. If clouds are there, what reflection you will get? No object. In the same way, in the mind there should not be any imagination of any object. Then immediately it turns to the Brahman. So he says, discrimination, no imagination. Reality of the experience of Atman is told by the word discrimination. The vibration ends where? In realization. The vibration or the imagination of the mind ends in realization. That is experienced by the realized persons. That he told Yogi Bihi. And that is aspirants. He says, aspirants, what they have to do? With the discrimination, they should stop all imaginations of the mind. And there should not be any vibration. Manaspandana should not be there. Afterwards he says, for telling the meaning of the fourth part of the Karika, a question is put, Nanu. In the absence of all specific knowledge, the mind in deep sleep behaves only like the mind under restraint. Again, the opponent is asking the question. What is asking? In the absence of all specific knowledge, the mind in deep sleep behaves only like the mind under restraint. What is there to be noticed particularly? The absence of specific knowledge being the same in the sleep as well as in samadhi. That was the question. The opponent says, even after restraint, the mind vibrates. You see, where he is going? Even after restraint, we see that mind vibrates. How? He says, just like you have made a part and you have taken the part, but the wheel will be moving. And a rope is there, you have burnt the rope. Rope is burnt completely. But for some time you see the shape of the rope will be there. If you remove the ashes, that is a different thing. But that particular rope, you cannot bind with that. In the same way, the realized person, we see all the actions, but they are only the semblance of appearance. Semblance of appearance. So, they cannot bind him. The particular knowledge is not there like the pot. Mind is restrained, but in sleep and restraint, he says, only the knowledge of pot is not there. When the mind is in samadhi or in sleep, both same, he says. There is no difference. Still, opponent says something. Wandering is there. Even after samadhi, after realization, that is, wandering is there. How you explain this? Some are having the glimpse of the knowledge in Savikalpa Samadhi. In Savikalpa Samadhi, many times, and for a particular period, say few seconds, few minutes, they have, say, the complete oneness. That is, I know Brahman. In Savikalpa, the Tripudi is there. And the ordinary person, if he goes to Nirvikalpa, again he cannot come back. But some are there, instead of having samadhi, say for half an hour, they will have for 5 minutes, they will have for 2 minutes, for 10 minutes, then they come back. That is, the mind has merged in the Atman for a particular period, that is 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Afterwards they come up. So they had the experience. That experience, because of that, though he is in the world, he is called a Jivan Mukta. He is called a Jivan Mukta. Because the oneness he has experienced, I am Atma Brahma. He knows well the unreality of the world. He knows well the unreality of the world. But what the opponent is asking, even after that realization, we see the vibration in the mind, and he goes for taking bhiksha, he moves here and there, he goes to pilgrimage centers, and in India, Kumbh Mela is there. So they say the many realized souls, those who sit all these, those who are sitting all these 12 years even in Himalayas, only in Samadhi, only staying there, even they come in subtle form or in gross form, they say. Whatever it may be. But he says, even after the realization, restraint of the mind, the vibrations are there. Then he says, Atra uchyate naivam. So he says, no, it is not so. Sushuptehe anyah pracharo avidya mohatamo grastasya antarlina anekanatha pravritti bija vasanavato manasaha atma satyanubodha hutasha viplushta avidya anartha pravritti bijasya niruddhasya anyah eva prashanta sarva klesha rajasa swatantraha pracharaha. Now he is comparing the both. The ignorant person who is sleeping and the other person who has restrained the mind. Here follows the reply. It is not so. Behavior of the mind in deep sleep is different, and the mind is then under the grip of darkness, which by nature is ignorance and delusion, and is also possessed of potential tendencies. That becomes the seed of many vicious deeds, he says. See, he is having a potential seed to do many bad deeds. The behavior of the mind under restraint is certainly different in as much as ignorance, which is the seed of various evil deeds, has been burnt in the fire of realization of the truth, which is the self, and also since the mind is purged of the effects of all afflictions. Mind is completely purified. So, there is no remnants or no tendencies. All things are removed. There is a lot of difference between the man of ignorance who is sleeping and the man of restraint mind. Even in many of the scriptures, last Shankara discusses, or Shankaracharya ji discusses, so many things. What? Whenever the opponent comes, he says, you see, he is not doing any bad deed in this life and following all the rituals completely enjoined by the scriptures. So, and he is enjoying the prarabdha also through the life, enjoying the prarabdha, not doing any bad deeds, and always doing the rites, is performing enjoined by the scriptures. So, in the end, he is realizing the Atman, he says. Then he says, no, it is not correct. Why? The latent tendencies are there in his mind that he has to purify and evacuate. Until and unless that he does, he will not realize. So he says, an Indra can become an ant, Indra can become an elephant, Indra can become a serpent. So, where from the tendencies? Latent tendencies are there in the mind. Those who remove all the tendencies, all the impressions of the mind, here they only realize. That also he puts a condition. If there is no obstacle, they will realize here. So he says, it is not so. Na tat samaha tasmad yuktaha sa vijñatum itabhiprayaha. Hence, the behavior of the mind in sleep is not like that. The behavior of the mind under restraint. Therefore, the idea is that it is worth knowing. The opponent asked, the mind in sleep and mind restrained are the same. What is necessary to know the Atman? That has been replied. Now, we will go to the sub-commentary. Knowledge is not there, so he has not experienced it. So delusion is there. If knowledge is not there, what will be there? Something else will be there. Mind will not keep quiet. So what is there? The latent tendencies are there. That is called moha, delusion. So, and then not only this, he says, moha tamograsta. Is perplexity is there. Mind simply revolving here and there, only wandering. Mind. That is there. That is called tama. If you say the delusion, moha, is the effect of ignorance, then in some places you say the ignorance is tama, darkness. But here you are using moha and say the tama. That means they are two things. So what is the meaning here? The moha is the effect of ignorance. Ignorance is called tama. So it comes to equal. But now he says moha as separate and tama as separate. So how do you explain? He says, the wandering of the mind, the perplexity of the mind is called darkness. And the delusion is called moha. So, two separate things are there. And what he says, inside the mind, there are potential tendencies. There is seed of these potential tendencies in a sleeping man. That is not there in the restrained mind. So, the realization consists of born tendencies. Says born tendencies. That is restrained state, completely removed the smallest rajasic portion of the mind, he says. Only when rajas is there, even in small portion, then only a desire will be there. You may look complete sattvic, but if some desire is there to go to New York, so some portion of rajas is there. Otherwise, desire will not be there. So, smallest rajasic portion of the mind, it will not be there in the restrained mind, he says. Independent and the form of Brahman, it is, then mind becomes independent. It takes the form of Brahman. Brahma Swarupavastha, it is the form of Brahman. So, difference, lot of difference is there between the sleep and samadhi. Tasmat yukta savigyatum. That is why a sleeping man has to know the Brahman. Otherwise, whoever sleeps, he will be Brahman. Everybody is sleeping, so everybody becomes Brahman. So your question is not correct. So what the proponent says, your question is not correct. It is refuted. Prachara bhede hetu maha. Then the opponent is asking something. The reason for the difference in behavior is being shown. Reason for the difference in behavior.
The word moha, remember that in Bhagavad Gita, when Adi Shankaracharya, I think it's verse 10 of chapter 2, it explains moha and shoka. But there it says moha in a specific way. Arjuna with the relatives,
That is, no, not same. Here, no, moha is the same, but it is not same with the darkness. Moha, we told it is delusion, comes out of illusion or ignorance. So, for Arjuna, what was the moha? He is attached to the relatives. That is why our 10th pontiff used to say, Nasto moha smritir labdhva. In the end he says, that means all his delusion is gone. Then he should go to realization. Why he should go to Swarga? What is the meaning of going to Swarga? Even Dharmaraja went to Swarga. What to talk of Arjuna? That means the particular delusion about the attachment of the relatives has been removed. We have to take in that particular sense only. Otherwise, we go against Vyasa Maharshi, who wrote Mahabharata. Mahaprasthan he wrote. That will be going against him. And Swami Krishnanji says, if you accept everything, you accept equally. It may be Mahabharata, it may be Ramayana, it may be Bhagavata, or it may be scriptures. Everything you should accept completely. And so-called seemingly appearing differences, that you should, with your intelligence or with the help of the teachers, you should reconcile. So, in Brahma Sutra, the very second chapter, what we call it? Virodha Pariharakhya Dvitiya Adhyaya. That all the differences have been removed. But if you go through all the Puranas, if you go through all the Bhagavata and Mahabharata and Ramayana, so many differences you get. Somewhere something he says, how to reconcile? So one fellow asked me some X. He says the same type of mistake was done by Ravana and Indra. See, Indra was having some desire of lust and he has enjoyed the wife of Gautama. And that is Indra, and he was a god, petty god. And Ravana was having a desire. That's why she brought Sita. But his desire was not fulfilled. But whom he brought? The wife of the God incarnated. So, by outside, we see that the mistake of Ravana is more and the mistake of Indra is less, and he is the God. And the fellow asks me, for Ravana he has given realization and for Indra he has given the punishment. Why? Then of course I have replied him, you see, if a big man commits a small mistake, he should be punished. If a small man commits a big mistake, we should excuse. Like Shivanji Maharaj. Whoever does what, he is never worried about anything. So, even if a small man does a mistake, he should be excused. So, Ravana was excused by Rama. He has given realization. And whereas he is a big shot, ruling all the gods and is the ruler of all gods, and you being such a big person, you commit mistake. So you should have punishment. Why? What is the sloka in Gita? Mahajana yena gata sapantha. So whatever the elder or famous big persons they do, that is followed by the ordinary persons. So that is the reconciliation. But the question is very intellect. Is very intelligently asked. So in this way, we have to reconcile everything. No difference in anything, because everything is unreal. Everything finally is only unreal. Unreality, we are speaking of the unreality. In unreality, reconciliation is very simple. But in reality, if you make some confusion, then you will be in unreality only. You will be ignorant. So he says, the function of mind is different. Now the moha, there actually the moha there he told, that is delusion. The delusion comes out of ignorance. Here he says ignorance as darkness, and Bhashyakara uses both moha and tamas. But what we usually understand, tamas means ignorance, he is sleeping in ignorance. And because of that, moha comes. So there is no difference between the cause and effect. But here he differs. Then how to explain? That's why the sub-commentator says, you see, here moha means delusion. And what is darkness? The oscillations of the mind is called darkness. In that way you have to take, then only you can differentiate the meaning, he says. Yadyadacharati says, stata deve taro janaha, in Gita it comes. Lokas tadan vartate. Number? 313. 933. Sorry, 933. Yadyadacharati says, stata deve taro janaha, sayat pramanam kurute lokaha. She should tell, Gita teacher. That's why I stopped. So, now how you explain here tamas? He says, here the darkness is all the latent tendencies in the mind. With that, at times he does all vicious deeds also. That what is also difference is there. There moha in always it is used in the same context. But there Krishna what he has used as moha is delusion. But what Arjuna has used moha in the end, that is little different. So the function of mind is different in sleep and samadhi. What is the reason? Now he is asking, what is the reason? Why it should be different? He says, liyate hi sushupte tan nigrihitam na liyate. That the mind dissolves in the sleep, but whereas in restrained state, it is not dissolved. It is experiencing the oneness. So, tadeva nirbhayam brahma jnana lokam samantataha. So, the restrained mind is not different from Brahman. Tadeva Brahma. Jnana lokam samantataha. The mind becomes dissolved in deep sleep, but when under restraint, it does not become dissolved. The mind alone becomes Brahman, the fearless, endowed with light, and that is consciousness on all sides. Now what he says? He says, the mind alone becomes Brahman. All the while you have taught us, mind is different and Brahman is different consciousness. Now here he says, mind is Brahman. That means, the purified mind is not different from Brahman. The impure mind is different from the Atman. See, in previous day also I told, in 18th chapter, he puts a question. You are always telling mind is inert and Atman is consciousness, and how an inert thing can realize the consciousness? Just we had the answer that the inert mind, it just removes the ignorance, and Atman is self-effulgent and it comes into light. But here he says, the pure mind is not different from the pure Atman. That it dissolves, even if it is there, it may not dissolve, but it is not different from the Atman because it is experiencing the highest bliss. Then how can you explain a Jivan Mukta? If the mind is not there, the realization must be something like heart attack disease. Yes, realization first, right? So, but we say Jivan Mukta Avastha, mind is there still. After realization, it is just as the semblance of appearance, we told. So, here he says that mind alone becomes Brahman. Mind merges, mind may not merge, because Brahma Veda Brahmaiva Bhavati. That's what Shruti says. The knower of Brahman becomes the Brahman itself. Brahmaiva san Brahmapyati. These are the Shrutis. So accordingly he is telling, the fearless endowed with the light that is consciousness on all sides. That means that particular mind, in that particular state, it sees only consciousness everywhere. The gopis chanting the name of Lord Krishna, finally says, I have become Krishna. Right? Aham Brahmasmi. Ignorance, etc. The Adi, he has used the word Adi. So what is this Adi? Ego, attachment, and other things you can take. Liyate sushuptehi yasma sarvabhir avidyadi pritya bija vasanabhi saha tamo rupam avashesha rupam bija bhavam apadyate tad viveka vijnana purukam niruddham nigrahitam sannaliyate tamo bija bhavam na apadyate. Since the mind in deep sleep, with all tendencies and impressions which form the seeds of experiences in the state of ignorance, becomes dissolved and assumes a seed-like condition of the potentiality which by nature is darkness and non-differentiation. See, that is the ignorance as he has described, state. But when through knowledge resulting from discrimination, the mind is kept under restraint, it does not become dissolved, nor does it attain the seed-like state of darkness. These potential tendencies are not there in the restrained mind. They are there in the sleeping state. Therefore, the difference in behavior of mind when in deep sleep and when collected is reasonable. Restrained. Instead of restrained, it says collected. So he says tendencies and impressions which form the seed of experiences. Avidya, he told ignorance, etc., etc. means you have to take the ego, the attachments and other things. In sleep, the mind dissolved with all the latent tendencies, all the impressions. And it is tamo-rupa. It is just inertness, jadyam. It is inert. He is there even in waking state. That inertness and that latent tendencies, when he wake up it comes and he does. A thief is always a thief almost. That are the latent tendencies is him. So that's why here he uses potential tendencies that become the seed of many vicious deeds, bad deeds. All those things are there in the sleep. There even in waking state. That is explained. That is, ignorance is ajnana. So when a man sleeps, ignorance is there even after waking up. When the mind is restrained, there is no ignorance. Second line is explained. Tadeva nirbhayam brahma jnana lokam samantata. That is explaining. Tad. Because of the discrimination, it says here, tad viveka vijnana purvakam. One particular word he has used, discrimination. And when through knowledge resulting from discrimination. Knowledge resulting from discrimination. So the subcommentator explains what is discrimination here. The knowledge of the difference of the mind and Atman. After getting the state that is different, but before getting that state of oneness, he is having the difference. That's why further he explains still. There is a difference between the mind and Atman. Fruits were, now he says the result of the sloka tasmad yuktam prachara bheda sushuptasya samahitasya manasaha. Therefore, the difference in behavior of mind when in deep sleep and when collected is reasonable. Then he says, layalaya rupa visheshat. That is, when the mind is not dissolved, in the restrained state, there is no fear for him. He gets the fearlessness. But whereas in sleeping state, because of all tendencies, the duality is not dissolved, as soon as he gets up, he starts fearing. Now again he says, the restrained mind becomes one with Brahman, whereas in sleep it becomes the perceiver. It sees something due to ignorance. The difference is there. The knower and the knowing, the seer and the seen, but there is no perceiver or perceived in restrained mind. Because mind is not having any vibrations, any oscillations, no impressions. So, both become one. The perceiver and perceived, then only you can call that is the knowledge of Brahman, knowledge of Atman. In that particular state, when mind is completely restrained, removing all the tendencies, then he just told there is no difference in the mind and Atman. The mind becomes the Atman, the pure mind. So, Sri Ramakrishna says, before sunrise, we see little redness. That we call Arunodaya. That is the charioteer of the sun appears first, then little Arunodaya. And then afterwards, sun comes and it becomes very more light. The redness has gone. So he says, the purity of the mind is something like Arunodaya. He says, you need not wait for a long. The very next thing is sunrise. That is knowledge. He compares like that. But there is no perceiver or perceived in restrained mind. There the mind is Brahman, so fearless. That is why he says it is fearless. Yada. That I have corrected all that. In 445, the very first word of the Sanskrit is not yatha, but it is yada. Then. When? Then. It comes like that. When, that's why you see, like that. Yatha means like that. But it says when. When the mind. The duality is removed. So, that is yada grahya grahaka avidyakata maladvaya varjitam. What is the impurity? The perceived and the perceiver. grahi grahaka. Tada parama param advayam brahmaeva. Then the absolute is the Brahman. Tat samvruttam iti. Ataha tadeva nirbhayam. Then he becomes one with the Brahman. That alone is the state of fearlessness. Nirbhayam. Dvaita grahanasya bhaya nimittasya abhavat. Fear will be there when you are having the duality. Shantam abhayam brahma. It is the calm and fearlessness state of Brahman. Yad vidvan na vibheti kutaschana. The knower of Brahman is not having any fear. Yad vidvan. When the mind itself becomes devoid of the dual blemishes, consisting in the idea of being the perceiver and perceived, that are caused by ignorance. The doer and the enjoyer. Like that, now if you go still further, the perceiver and perceived. That means still difference of mind is there. Then it becomes the supreme and non-dual Brahman itself. Therefore, since the perception of duality which causes fear is absent, by the absence of fearlessness, because the perception of duality is not there, the mind itself becomes fearless. Mind itself becomes fearless. Brahman is peacefulness and fearlessness. By knowing which the enlightened one does not entertain any fear from anywhere. Any fear from anywhere, he says. The restrained mind is fearless. That has been shown. Now, further he is telling, the Brahman which you are talking, does it manifest or it is not manifesting? Again, opponent is coming. If you say it manifests, for manifesting means, a means is necessary for manifesting, then there is no non-duality, because you are seeing the means and the end. For manifestation of Brahman, some means should be there. Sadhya sadhana. So, when you say through sadhana, through practice, through austerities, I will realize Brahman, then non-duality is not there. Duality is there. If it is not manifesting, then it is then it is not the highest goal of life. If it is not manifesting, if you are not able to realize the oneness, how can you take it as the end of the life, goal of your life? So, he has put a question, whether the Brahman is manifesting or not manifesting. If it is manifesting, the means should be there. Then there is no non-duality. When it is not manifesting, then what is the use of thinking of it? Then he says, Tadeva visheshyate jnaptir jnanam atma svabhava chaitanyam. This is jnaptir jnanam, many times I told. It is the experience. So, tadeva jnanam alokaha prakasho yasya tad brahma jnanalokam. The very effulgence is Brahman. That is called jnanalokam. Vijnana ekarasa ghana mityartha. To prove that, he says, samantatha samantat sarvato vyomavad nairantaryena vyapaka mityartha. Samanta, sarvato, different words are one word. No, afterwards, Samanta Sarvato. That different or one word, sir? Uh. Huh? Oh, that's why I am not able to get the meaning. Samantat Sarvataha. Samantat Sarvataha. Samantat. You see, Samantataha is there. So that you have to split as Samantat Sarvataha. The distinction of that Brahman is further specified. How knowledge means consciousness, which exactly the nature of the self. Now you see, knowledge means consciousness. Huh? That's why again and again I say, in the Jnana Yoga, when you are able to discriminate and remove the oscillations of the mind, nothing to do further. You are already that. After removing the snake on the rope, rope is there. So, the snake is because of ignorance that you have removed. You are removing the cover. Ignorance means what? That you have put a cover on the Atman. And you think for something. Atasmin tad buddhi. In Brahma Sutra it says, Atasmin tad buddhi. You see a thing as a mistake, you see something else. So distinction of that Brahman is further specified. Knowledge means consciousness, which exactly is the nature of the self. So, when defining the Brahman, it says, Satyam Jnanam Anantam Brahma. Then, what is Jnanam there? It is its very nature. It is the nature of existence. It is the nature of knowledge. It is the nature of the bliss. That is the nature of Brahman. So, it says, knowledge is not different from Brahman. In nature, it's the nature of the Brahman. Consciousness, which exactly is the nature of the self. See, knowledge is consciousness, that is the nature of the self. Brahman, which has that knowledge as its light, is endowed with the light of knowledge, meaning it is dense with the one essence of knowledge. So, what do you mean by Brahman? Brahman, which has that knowledge as its light, the nature, is endowed with the light of knowledge, meaning it is dense with the one essence of knowledge. The world samantataha, that is from all the sides, samanta, sarvato, vyomavat, nairantarena, says, means that it is without a break and is all-pervading like ether. It is all-pervading like ether. Further he is explaining the present context. What is the present context? The sub-commentator says, the restrained mind. That is the present context. The present context of Brahman, that is restrained mind, is explained in another way. He says, Ajam, Anidram, Aswapram, Anamakam, Arupakam. Ajam, Anidram, Aswapram, Anamakam, Arupakam. When you chant, you should not break the words. When you break the words, that means you have started explaining or understanding. So, when you chant, even in Bhagavad Gita, you should not break in between. That continuous flow should be there. Sakrit vibhatam sarvajnam nopacharha kathanchana. The Brahman is birthless, sleepless, dreamless, nameless, only less, less, less. So, formless, ever resplendent and omniscient. So, only negation. And finally, what he says, it is omniscient like the ether, ever resplendent as regards that there can be no routine practice of any kind. See, now all the practices simply, practice is not necessary, says. But afterwards you tell, then nobody will read these things. Because everybody is having some part of ignorance. If he has realized, why should he should take this one and read, breaking the head. So he will just sit and meditate on the Atman. So the difference is there. He says, after experiencing, there will be no duties. He says. Ajam anidrama swapnam anamakam arupakam sakrit vibhatam sarvajnam nopacharha kathanchana. That he says. As regards that, there can be no routine practice of any kind. Then he is explaining the aja, that is, it is not having any birth. What is the cause of the birth for which you are telling it is not having birth, it is birthless? He says avidya, because of ignorance. How the removal of ignorance? Then he says after removal only he will become birthless. After removing the ignorance, he becomes birthless. Janma nimitta bhava sabhahyabhyantaram ajam. Because the Brahman is birthless, it is homogeneous, inside, outside, upside, underside, all the sides. Samantata. Avidya nimittam hi janma rajju sarpodi devochama. The birth is due to ignorance, just like a snake on the rope. Sacha avidyatma satyanubodhen niruddha. If you realize the self, the ignorance is removed. Yato ajam ataheva nidram. Because it is not having any birth, so no sleep also. Avidya lakshana anadir maya nidra. Now he says, what is this ignorance? It is not having the beginning, anade, maya, nidra. First he says avidya, then he says maya, then he says nidra. All are same. So, in Vedanta there is no difference between maya and avidya. Swapat prabuddho advaya swarupena atmana ataha aswapnam. When he wakes up, because of oneness, there is no dream also. Aprabodha kritehi asya anama rupe. Where from you are getting the name and form when you have not realized? Aprabodha krite. Prabodhacha te rajju sarpavad vinaste. When you realize, as the snake fades away on the rope, so also. Iti namna abhidhiyate brahma rupyate va na kenachit prakarena iti anama rupakam chatat. So for Brahman there is no name, there is no form. That's why he says, yato vacho nivartante. The mind and the speech reverts back. That he says. Since the cause of birth is absent, Brahman is birthless and exists within and without, we have already pointed out the birth arises only from ignorance like a snake from a rope. And that ignorance becomes vanished, consequent on the realization of the truth, that is the self. Thus, Brahman is birthless and is also therefore sleepless. The beginningless Maya characterized by ignorance is sleep. Now he has put everything in one line. So, never make difference between the Maya and ignorance if you want to be a Vedantin. What Vedanta says? I am Atma Brahma, the self. Then that alone is there. There no other two things, no differentiation.
Vanquished, vanished.
Acha, vanquished.
Defeated,
Uh.
sublime, subdued.
Vanquished. We have left the queue. Question. Vanquished. Vanished. That is why some little defect is there in the eyes. So at times.
Yeah, but Swamiji said vanished. That's what it is vanquished.
Vanquished. Removed. By its own non-dual nature, it is ever awake from sleep and is therefore dreamless. Its name and form are indeed created by ignorance. And on the dawn of knowledge, they disappear like a snake falsely imagined on a rope. As such, it cannot be indicated by any name nor can it be described on terms of any form in any manner. Hence, it is nameless and formless, as is seen from the Shruti, such as from which speech returns. Now, little sub-commentary is there. Not much, we will finish. After experiencing, there will be no duties, he says. Neti. No upachara. Explain the aja and what is the cause of the birth for which you are telling aja. He says, because it is birthless. How the removal? The removal is only after removing the ignorance and when you get knowledge. Since the ignorance like sleep is not there, ateva, that is why anidram. Ateva anidram. Then another adjective is explaining avidya lakshana anadir maya nidra. The sleep is not there, ignorance is not there in that. That is why anidram. Prabuddho advaya swarupena atmana ataha aswapnam. No sleep. And explaining other two adjectives. Aprabodhe. Aprabodhakrite hi asya anama rupe. Asya nama rupe. When you have not realized, then only name and forms are there. When you realize, there is no name and form. Brahman is without name and form. He takes the help of the Shruti, yato vacho nivartante, he says. So, like that, we have finished little commentary of this particular 36th Karika, and little commentary is left, one para, that we will do tomorrow.